Hello, I'm Dr. Joe. Welcome to my kitchen table chats. Today we're going to answer that question, is a yeast infection contagious? Perhaps you've been struggling with recurrent yeast infections and you're wondering if you caught it from someone else. I had that thought myself. And the really simple answer to that question is no, it's not contagious like a flu bug. The yeast is really more of an opportunist. It tends to overgrow in our systems when we create conditions that favor its overgrowth. So what does that? What creates the conditions that favor its overgrowth? Well, mostly it's the choices we make. Even though we may not realize we're helping those little critters grow, in our culture these days, we just tend to eat a lot of food that feeds the yeast and doesn't feed us very well. So probably the number one culprit is eating a lot of sweets, sucking on a soda, some kind of soft drink, frequently eating candy or cookies or cake or ice cream. What's your addiction? Mine was chocolate chips. I used to hide them so that when those chocolate sugar cravings hit me, I'd have some handy. That's what got me into trouble with yeast infections. And then, of course, when we're eating our ice cream or cookies or candy day in and day out, or heaven forbid, those huge sodas, it tends to suppress our immune systems. And so we might get a bacterial infection or perhaps even a viral infection. And we go to the doctor and get an antibiotic to try to treat it. Of course, we know antibiotics don't treat viral infections, but sometimes the doctor's not sure whether it's viral or bacterial, so they give us an antibiotic. Well, then that just upsets things in our systems even more. Yes, antibiotics can be very life-saving, and they may very well get rid of that strep throat or that bladder infection or that ear infection in your child. But you see, antibiotics are not targeted to that one organism. Antibiotics are more like a shotgun that kill off many of the various strains of bacteria that reside in your body, and especially in your gastrointestinal tract. Well, those friendly bacteria actually keep the yeast in check. And so when they're gone, when the good guys are gone, who's around to keep those culprits in check? That's the problem. Sometimes when we get into recurrent infectious processes, we get so much inflammation that the doctor finally, reluctantly has to treat us with cortisone. Or perhaps you have allergy problems that require cortisone from time to time, or heaven forbid asthma or some really chronic disease where cortisone kind of becomes the last resort. Well, it too increases the yeast overgrowth, which makes whatever you have already even worse. And then as women, many of us have taken birth control pills, and that too encourages the overgrowth of yeast. Unfortunately, most of us live a fairly stressful lifestyle, which favors yeast overgrowth as well. So that's how we get that overgrowth of yeast in our bodies. So can you see now that yeast is not really infectious? It's not really passed from one person to another because we all have yeast in our systems anyway. And so I don't really like the term yeast infection, although we use that term a lot, but it's really a yeast overgrowth. Now, some doctors feel that maybe the yeast is passed back and forth between family members, even sexually, and that is a possibility, but it doesn't play a big factor in most people's yeast overgrowth problems. You might think that family members all might have yeast overgrowth because they all tend to eat the same diet, don't we? In a family, we all tend to kind of eat the same way and live the same lifestyle, so we all may be doing the things that foster yeast overgrowth in our bodies. Well, I've given you just a taste of how yeast gets established in our systems, and I'm sure you're interested in finding out more. So you can take a look at the website called overcomingyeastinfection.com. I'm looking forward to seeing you at our next kitchen table chat. Thanks.